How's it going, everybody? My name is Gage. I'm going to be showing you guys why it is so important to have your optimization events actually set up correctly within your financial service meta advertising campaigns. And this is after spending seven figures in ad spend, gathering a ton of data, and showing you guys what they did, what didn't work, what did work, etc. Okay, let's hop into it. So, this company was a financial service company. They were running a webinar funnel. This was a webinar or an evergreen webinar funnel. So, essentially, this wasn't live. Anybody that comes into the funnel can opt in and watch it on demand at any time. So, their old setup was essentially this. So, they were running obviously an ad that will lead to an opt-in page where the prospect can learn more about the offer, the service, what they provide, and so on and so forth. And at that point, they can opt in and watch the webinar on the next page. This is a 1 hour evergreen webinar with a schedule a call button at the bottom of the screen at all times during the entire duration. So at any time, this prospect can schedule a call whenever they want. So what was happening was whenever this webinar was played, the optimization event of play, this was a custom event, would be signaled back to the campaigns in Meta through the pixel and optimize for that click. Essentially, for whoever played that webinar, got to that page and played the webinar, that person was then sent back to the pixel and optimized for so that the algorithm continue finding more people that would play the webinar. See, now I'm going to show you exactly why. In theory, this does sound decent, but I'm going to show you why this isn't going to work. So this is why it's wrong. So I included an intent scale. This is not made to scale. This is just trying to display the progression of intent throughout this entire funnel. So as you can see right here, when a prospect came from an ad, at that point, they are still cold when they're on the opt-in page, but they then opt in, go to the webinar. At that point, they are a lead. Now, keep in mind, the standard event within Facebook is there is a lead standard event. This is nothing more than somebody just giving an email, maybe a phone number. There is no intent signal behind this lead event. This entire pool that Facebook notices as a lead within the trillions of data points, the millions of people within this lead category, there is no further intent that Facebook notices within this audience, right? And you'll see why this is very important later. So now this lead goes to the webinar. They are now stuck in a 1 hour webinar that they cannot fast forward, they cannot sift through, they must watch the entirety, and they can schedule a call at any time, right? So what happens though, when this webinar auto plays, and it's now playing and they're sending the optimization event of play back to the campaigns, what is happening? So whenever this lead travels from this opt-in page, there is no intent filter. There is no mechanism to where this lead can now display further intent to be able to justify this event being sent. This play effectively, since it is auto-playing, since the prospect doesn't actually have to manually click and show that they want to watch this video, watch this webinar, other than just straight up opting in, this play shows no further intent than lead, this lead standard event. So it is acting as a disguise. So essentially what this means, the finding here is that this optimized event that's triggered by the autoplay, I don't know if I prefaced this, I probably did, but whenever this webinar does play, they're sending the webinars or the event to Meta, which actually I did already say that, but the optimized event triggered by the autoplay would be the intent and quality equivalent to the standard lead event. How does it impact the actual campaign though? Without the true user intent, this event doesn't improve the audience quality. It's functionally equivalent to a basic lead event, offering no optimizational advantage whatsoever. So essentially what I'm saying is, it is no different than having people opt in than them actually watching the webinar in this case. Yes, there is a way for people to book this appointment, schedule a call, but you're not actually optimizing for the scheduled call. You're optimizing for this lead. So you're blindly walking into this campaign, just sending in a bunch of people, hoping that a lot of them are going to schedule a call, but there's no way of knowing that because Facebook's not optimizing for the schedule a call people. The people who actually show intent to schedule a call, they're optimizing for everyone. See, Now I'm going to cover exactly the better version of this that they were also doing. I will also talk about how isn't exactly the best way to do it. Just depends on the audience you're going after and who you're servicing, your target avatar, your target audience. So this was another version of what they were doing within the campaigns. So we have this entire first part, still the same, all the way to the play, except the main optimization event they were doing was a watch all webinar event. So when this was signaled was whenever the webinar ended, a custom event was sent back to Meta to signal an event, only optimizing for those who watched the entirety of the webinar, the full 1 hour webinar. At that point, a schedule call pop-up automatically came up, and that was just a plus, right? Whoever booked a call at that point, it was a plus. See, okay, this is better. Why? Because at this point, the impact on the campaign is showing that whoever watched this full webinar, they demonstrated a much higher signal of intent. You know, in the entire or the entire purpose of this financial offer to begin with is the people understanding the full nuances of the service is actually the main selling point. Because once they do understand the full context of the service, at that point, people who automatically know, like, oh, this is for me, those are the people who they want to work with, right? And obviously, they need to have qualification criteria. They need to fit that criteria, and usually that fits a financial certain financial criteria and so on and so forth. And completing the entire webinar indicates a genuine interest and somewhat proves further intent. There's a reason why I put somewhat, and I will show you in a little bit. But I'm going to explain why Watch All webinar does work. Whenever you're optimizing for this watched all webinar or this specific stage of the funnel, you're specifically targeting people. You're specifically showing Facebook, hey, this is the audience that showed that they had a very high interest in what we were showing them. Find more of them, right? Now, if you were to target the leads, yes, you're going to have a much higher volume of people, much more data on the people that come into your funnel, and you're giving a lot of data back to Facebook. But what is this data showing? It is showing, okay, yeah, there is a bare minimum interest in this entire audience. And it's going to be finding much more of the average of the people coming into that funnel. Now, I'm going to just ask you this to be able to kind of give you a better understanding of this. Would you much rather have 1,000 people that watched an entire hour of content displaying your service, and then after that, once they were interested the entire way, the entire hour, would you want to find more people like that or more people that maybe spent maybe 3 minutes learning about your service and just wanted to maybe learn a little bit more? And let's just say there's 10,000 of them, right? We'd want to find the people who did this, right? With that same logic, though, I'm going to show you another version of this. This is going to be a suggested refined version of the watch all funnel, but it does come with it all. It also does come with its nuances as well, because this part is very audience dependent. So if you have a financial service that targets people, and this specific audience is not as affluent, right? They don't value their time as much because one of the main characteristics of an affluent individual is they tend to know what their time is valued at, right? Whereas typically the typical average audience doesn't value their time as much. So if you were to stick them into a 1 hour webinar that they had to stick through the entire time, the people who watched the entirety of that webinar, people that they were optimizing for, what is a very, very common characteristic of those people? They don't value their time as much. Now, what does this mean? They typically don't have the characteristics of those that they want to work with, aka an affluent individual or an affluent household. See, now, if you are targeting the type of people that aren't really valuing their time as much, a less affluent audience, then I would suggest something like this. Have the 1 hour webinar, skip the schedule a call button. Do not include it because you're going to be booking your calendar off of people who are simply haven't reached that full intent spectrum. They haven't crossed the entire range of the intent scale, and you're just going to be finding people all over the place. Maybe they watched the webinar, maybe they didn't, so on and so forth. It's simply going to be a mess within your calendar. Continue going, but I would actually place the optimization event on the appointment booking page after the webinar has been completed, right? And then all the people who didn't watch or who did watch the webinar, who didn't book an appointment, they are going to be retargeted straight to a book a call funnel, right? So at this point, whenever the webinar is ended, we are only going to be optimizing off the people who do schedule a call after the webinar and are qualified based on the questions that we ask them, sending them back to Meta so we can find more people like that, more people who have shown intent characteristics to watch an entire webinar and book a call afterwards. We are finding people who are further down the intent spectrum. We want the people at the end who are not going to waste their time, who will continue to progress through the sales process, not the people who are going to waste our time, not the people who simply do not display the characteristics of those that we want to work with. Okay, now what is the impact of this? I've already kind of already said this, but I'm going to reiterate this, what I've written down. We're now optimizing for users who schedule a call after watching the full webinar. This captures the highest intent signal available on the front end, and I will explain that right now. Users who've consumed complete educational content before moving further into the sales process. Now, this is what that front end is. Now, what is the back end? The back end is what I would do in the case if we were actually targeting a group of people who are more affluent, right? If we were targeting people who are more affluent, who typically have much more in terms of assets, investments, maybe they're business owners, they do value their time because there is a direct ROI on their time. Those are the type of people who typically have a much more larger abundance to them. So if we were targeting that sort of audience, I would not be optimizing for a watched all webinar event, or I would not even be restricting them to be able to book a call if they watch the entire webinar. Now, what I would do is, let's just say we do have this 1-hour webinar included, I would bring back this schedule a call button. See now, but at this point, once they do schedule this call, they have to answer a certain amount of questions. They do book this call. If they book this call, I would not have it to the optimization event where they do book the call and they are qualified per the answers that they have given. You're going to be having a much higher volume of people. At this point, we are no longer having an optimization event automation based on the stage of the funnel that is on the front end. On the back end, where we've given tons of valuable emails, tons of valuable remarketing content in between the time they've booked a call and they actually get to the call. We want to find the people who actually engage within the back end process and optimize for them. If you are a company and you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on ads a month, you want to optimize for the people who do show up to the calls, who are ready for the calls, and actually have an actual intentful purpose on joining the call and wanting to move forward through that sales process. This is where you add in the enablement of your sales team to be able to find the people who are worth talking to. This can kind of be iffy when it comes to services where you're only working with maybe, 10, 50, 100 high-ticket clients throughout the entire year, but where this would actually be very valuable would be if you have a high-ticket service where you can work with 1,000 people, 500 people, whatever it may be, and your sales team being able to signal back to the campaign where this really, really rich intent signal of actually showing up to the call, answering questions, and showing interest in pursuing this sales process after the discovery phase. Once you find exactly who your ICP is and allowing your sales team to actually qualify them based on intent and other qualification criteria that you lay out. At that point, then they send back that event back to the campaign, and now you are basically optimizing for people who show up to the calls and have a ton of intent. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that actually made a lot of sense. I feel like I just kind of info dumped you guys, but if you are a financial company and you do put this into practice, I can almost guarantee you that you will have a lot of just high intent people showing up in your funnel. Not only that, but you could even use this to be able to actually bump up your average, average characteristics of your client profile. For example, average assets under their possession or under their name, which means if you're charging a percentage of assets under management, more money for you. So hope you guys enjoy this video. Drop a follow. Connect with me on LinkedIn, whatever you got to do. I'll catch you guys later.
Free audio post-production by Alphonic.com.